Hello, everyone. This is MMA Interesting Prospects podcast. Today, our guest is Chris Gonzalez, who will fight on LFA 213, July 26th. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Doing good, brother. How are you?
I'm good. And overall, I think that your fight against Jacob Rosales, it's probably the most interesting fight on the card because he's a very good fighter, and also you had so many good wins on your record. Even that we are not like super experienced in MMA, you always fought against really good guys. So if you can tell me, what do you think about Jacob as the opponent, and how would you rate him next to your previous opponents?
Yeah, I think it's a really good matchup. I think it makes a lot of sense for both myself and for him. He's had a couple of contender opportunities, so it's clear that he's on the UFC's radar. He's had a couple shots to try to kind of come in and make a stamp and get that call up to the next level. Unfortunately for him, he hasn't quite got it done there yet. So I feel like he was kind of in a situation where he needed another tough fight in order to maybe have a third crack or opportunity to get that call up. And then myself, similarly, I have competed against the best in the world from the beginning of my career. And, that's always been the story. I've never wanted to take easy fights by any means. So, just getting somebody like him who has had the opportunities to get to where I want to go and where I know and believe that I belong. I just think it makes a lot of sense for the both of us.
And actually, you fought even at the beginning stage of your careers with guys like Tokov, like Mackenzie, like Radke. So overall, like super high level MMA guys, especially that it was just your beginning. So it's I think that it's super impressive, especially that you won these fights.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny, my first fight with Bellator was against Charlie Radke, who is now a UFC welterweight. I believe he's fighting in the welterweight division. Um, and it was a good fight. I knew he was a high level opponent back then. I didn't quite understand that he would be making it to that level that early. Everyone was telling me, he was a high level guy. He had only had, I think, one loss at the time, and it was to Austin Hubbard, who's also, a UFC veteran. So I knew he had the skill set to get to that level. But I've always been confident in what I bring to the table early on in my career. And, it's been difficult for me to find opponents, whether it was when I just started off. So I've always had to fight upper echelon fighters. And, I've really just been learning on the job. And so, I've never been scared to, take, these high level fights against, the best in the world, being a wrestler and coming from that extensive Olympic level caliber competition and just kind of mindset. I look forward to challenges like that. And, whether you win or lose, it's either a lesson or a learning experience. And, I've had a few learning experiences along the way. And, like I said, I'm learning on the job, and I'm fortunate to have some really high level quality wins on my record. And July 26th, I'm looking forward to add another one.
And you also had the chance to fight against Roger Huerta, who I think that like older fans can like really remember him because at one point he was like really top level lightweights. So it was I believe your sixth or seventh fight, so also quite early in your like pro career.
Yeah. So the funny thing about Roger is I had actually asked for him when I found he was on the Bellator roster. And at the first couple of times, they were like, no, he's not available, or for whatever reason, they didn't want to match us up. And then one of the matchmakers actually ended up reaching out to me, and he's like, hey, what do you think about Roger Huerta? And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Like, I wonder where you came up with that, right? But no, it was a great fight. He had actually fought a teammate of mine and really good friend of mine earlier in his career, Clay Guida, and he had beat Clay, so I wanted to get that back for my boy. And Roger had a big name. I want to say he was or is the only fighter ever to grace the cover of like a Sports Illustrated magazine, if my memory serves me correct. So I know he was kind of like a big thing, especially, early on in MMA's like infancy and development stages. So, I've always sought out the guys who've had the most exposure, the biggest opportunities, a lot of spotlight, just so I can kind of steal a little bit of that spotlight for myself. So it's nice to get in there with the veteran and get that W and kind of avenge a good friend at the same time.
And your last fight was over 2 years ago. It was a fight in Bellator. And if you can tell me why did you take this kind of the break, which is also quite a long one? And did you have a chance to go fighting for PFL?
Yeah, so that wasn't a choice I made actually. So I don't like being inactive. It's actually been a very frustrating couple of years, if I'm being honest with you. So I've been offered maybe 25 to 30 different opponents, over various different promotions, and I've accepted all of them. So usually the promotion will come to me first. They'll be like, "Hey, what do you think about this guy?" I've said yeah to all of them. You can even go on my Instagram at CG's Dream. I've actually posted some of the message interactions I've had with some of the matchmakers, and they're like, "Look, man, like in my 15, 20 years of experience, we've never had an issue like this where people just won't fight you. I'll accept a fight. More often than not, they just turn it down right out of the gate. I've had maybe 7 or 8 plus fights where they've actually accepted it. And then, after like a week, or, maybe they didn't even look me up or know who I was at the time. And then I don't know if it was, they went and looked me up or if their coaches looked me up and they came back to them and they were just like, hey, we don't like that matchup, we're not going to take it, and they end up pulling out for whatever reason. I'm not really privy to that information. um so that's been a large part of it. And then there was one opponent that I had lined up, and it was heading into fight week, and he was down to fight, and I thought that was going to kind of be my opportunity to go out there, showcase the improvements that I've made, and that I belong in the UFC, which is ultimately my goal and everyone's goal at the end of the day. Chris Padilla, who's also now in the UFC. And so we were scheduled to fight. It was fight week. It was a Monday. And then I got a call from the matchmaker or the manager who had actually set the fight up for me. And he got the call up to the UFC on short notice. So, so the one guy who was down to fight me actually ended up getting a call up on short notice. So yeah, I haven't had any opportunities, brother. Like I've really been lobbying, trying to fight. I've worked with some of the top management organizations. I've worked with Iridium. I've worked with, Uriah and his team of management. I've worked with quite a few different guys, and they can only do so much. They bring me names, we say yes, but at the end of the day, you can't make a fighter show up and fight. So that is the reason why I haven't fought in 2 years. There's no other reason. I've been actively trying to fight, but we just haven't really found anybody worth fighting. So luckily, we got this one to go, and I'm excited for it.
And I think that maybe some opponents don't want to fight you because of your like wrestling credential, because it's probably the main point. Of course, you have right now a really big experience in MMA fighting good fighters, but in the end, I think that your like wrestling background, your successes in wrestling, there probably it can be the aspect that some people like prefer like go stand and like exchange punches.
Yeah, everybody wants to be Conor McGregor. They want to go out there and they want to look cool. They want to do some flashy shit. But that's not gonna happen with me. I love to fight. I love to stand and bang for sure. I'd rather keep it on my feet, but at the same time, I always have that wrestling ability in the toolbox. So it's like if things aren't going on my feet for whatever reason, I have the ability to kind of dictate where the fight goes. So I definitely think that plays a factor into people's decision making. They want to come out there, they don't want to swim in deep waters. And with me, that's what you're going to get. Either I'm going to get in there and I'm going to knock you out, or I'm going to get in there and I'm going to slam you on your head and you're just going to be in for a long night. So it's kind of pick your poison. The first 6 months or so, it was pretty flattering that nobody wanted to fight me. But after a year or so, it just became really frustrating. So I'm past the point of being flattered, and I'm just excited for the opportunity, honestly.
And of course, you had this kind of crazy wrestling experience, wrestling background. And if you can tell me, how old were you when you started to wrestle?
Yeah, so I mean, compared to the guys that I've been training with and competing with, in the wrestling scene. I got a really late start, relatively compared to everyone else. I didn't start wrestling until high school, actually. So I was a freshman in high school. I'm from Illinois, the Chicago area. So fortunately, where I'm from, there's a high talent pool of wrestlers and high quality coaches that were around me. Um, and actually, during high school, I lived with my high school wrestling coach for a period of time, and he was super invested in me, and I'm super appreciative and grateful for, the influence that he had on not only my wrestling career, but just my life in general. Wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. So, shout out to Jason Butler. I appreciate everything you've done for me. And then, but yeah, he would take me all over the country, all over the state just to kind of compete with the best guys, whether it was Ellis Coleman, Lillishawn Coleman over at Oak Park River Forest High School, Coach Mike Powell, who's a phenomenal, he was a phenomenal wrestler himself and an even better coach, which just speaks volumes about his coaching credentials because he was an amazing wrestler also. And so many other ones. Coach Linlin was, played a big role. So many more coaches. It's kind of hard to remember now. I'm 33, so it's not on the frontal lobe like it used to be. Coach Medlin was very crucial in my development, and he's the head coach over at University of Illinois right now. He's doing big things. I'm really happy for him, and he deserves the opportunity that he has over there. He earned it. He wasn't given anything. He's a hardworking guy. He's a great husband, a great father, and a fantastic coach. So I mean, there's a lot of people that added to my development, and it's like they say, it takes a village. So luckily, I had a good village around me, and it kind of expedited my development. And when you're training with the best, it's sink or swim. So it's either put up or shut up. And I've always been kind of stubborn, a kind of stubborn person. So I don't like losing. I love to compete. And you mix all that in with some good coaching and some high quality training partners, and you find a way to succeed.
But I think that also it means that you are quite like a fast learner because it's probably super hard to start at this age, and you still were able not only to learn this skill, but go with it with in into really high level. So when you can do it something with one thing, it's probably possible to do it like with MMA or with other aspects of MMA.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It helps to be obsessed too. When you come from a background like myself where you don't really come from much, you don't really have much, it's really easy to get obsessed with things that you see can provide an opportunity for you that you've never had. And sports was always something that I saw as kind of my gateway out of the environment that I was raised in. And so I just obsessed over it. I've always been athletic. I've always worked for my athleticism. It's not given, it's earned. But at the same time, where I'm from, everybody's athletic. Like we're all athletes. We're all outside. We all play multiple sports. That's just kind of how we deal with the tumultuous situations and living environments that a lot of us were just raised in. Is that's our outlet is sports. Um, so I mean, it's just where you find peace. That's where I find peace, and that's just where I kind of just try to keep my mindset is focused on training and just having fun and winning. And it's nice to win. When you're not getting the reassurances, that some other like kids who maybe come from better situations get. And then you start winning tournaments, you're winning, wrestling matches, you're winning fights. People are telling me, "Oh, you're doing such a good job," or, "We're proud of you." They're coming to see you. It feels good. It feels good. So, yeah, I think that all plays a big role in it.
And if you can tell me, how did you get to Alpha Male? Because for so many years it was like a super big gym. Right now is also super big gym. They've got a lot of talents even on the regional scene. There are a ton of prospects like from flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight division. So if you can tell me, how did you get to the team?
Yeah, so it was kind of just random chance to be honest with you. I was dating Michaela Mayer at the time. She had just come back from the Olympics in Rio and had just fallen short of medaling out there. And Ronda Rousey had actually reached out to her team and flew her out to help her prepare for her fight with Amanda Nunes. in Las Vegas. So she did a camp with Rhonda. Rhonda actually ended up hooking her up with a couple tickets to the fight. And then so we were at the fight, just kind of hanging out, watching the fights. And Michaela's from California. She's a California girl. And she was always a big fan of Uriah, the California kid, like most girls were, or are rather. And she was like, "Oh my God, that's Uriah!" Like, and just kind of like starstruck, googly-eyed, or whatever you want to call it. And I was like, "Oh, go say hi." And she was being kind of shy. I was like, "Come on!" And I grabbed her and we walked over and Uriah had a line of people just waiting to talk to him, take pictures and whatever. And Uriah loves it. He eats it up. He'll stop. It doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m., 8 p.m., 6 a.m. He loves the spotlight. He does really well in it. So he's talking to everybody. He's taking pictures. And I kind of just cut the line. I grabbed Michaela with me and I kind of just like whispered to him. I was like, "Hey, my name's Chris. I'm coming off of competing at the World Championships for Greco-Roman. This is Michaela. She's coming off of competing at the Olympics for boxing, and we were both kind of transitioning into MMA at that point in time. And I was like, we'd love to come check out your gym sometime if we could." And his eyes just kind of lit up, and he was like, put everybody on hold real quick, and we ended up exchanging information, got his contact. Him and Michaela took some photos. We kind of just like talked for a little bit, and then within the next week, I actually drove from Colorado Springs, where I was living at the Olympic Training Center at the time. Came to check out the gym. I was there for about a week. I stayed in Uriah's house. He opened up his house to me and checked it out for a week. The coaching was high level. I love the fact that there was a lot of variety as far as high level training partners around my weight class also. Um, because there's high level coaches everywhere. But there's only so many coaches per fighter, right? So a lot of the time you're going to learn more from your training partners and your peers than you are from your coaches, just because they can only have eyes on so many people at one time. You got two eyes and 40 athletes or however many athletes are in your gym. So I really like that, between, we had the Josh Emmets, Cody Garbrandt was on top of the world at the time. I love that, we had, world champion material in the gym. Andre Feely, Darren Elkins, Clay Guida, Danny Castillo had done his thing and had a great career and competed with some of the best guys in the world, and so many other fighters and just good coaches that was kind of a no-brainer. So within a month of that entire interaction, we loaded up all our stuff in a U-Haul and I was headed down to Sacramento.
Yes, and when you are in this kind of gym, you can only be better and develop quickly because of so many guys. You mentioned few, probably you can mention for like 10 or 15 minutes. So it's like it's probably which one sparring partner you will take. It will be like great session.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Chris, so many thanks for the time and for conversation. I think that this Rosales fight is absolutely super intriguing one, and I definitely hope that after this you will take a few more even this year to be finally more active.
Yeah, me too, brother. I mean, the goal is always to be as active as possible. Even with Bellator, my last contract, I had negotiated that I wanted to get offered at least 4 fights a year. Health permitted, I like to stay active. Coming from a wrestling background, especially, you're used to competing, if not weekly, bi-weekly, if not bi-weekly, like monthly, at the very least. Nobody loves training, right? Like we train, we have to train, like you enjoy it to a degree, but it's, you want to reap the fruits of your labor. So competition is really where, you get fired up, you get excited, you're motivated and things like that. Unfortunately, Bellator sold out to PFL. I actually had a fight lined up for their last card. I had a great camp. I was looking forward to, getting back in the win column after that shit decision that I got in Paris. Um, and then I tore my hamstring the week of the fight. So if I could have walked in there and limped in there, I would have. But I literally couldn't walk, so I had to pull out of the fight. Unfortunately, I've never had to do that. And then right after that, that was the last card they had. They ended up selling to PFL. I kind of saw the direction that that was headed, as far as them just kind of freezing a lot of the fighters and not letting them be active. So I was trying to get ahead of the game. So I actually asked for a release just because it had been like 6 months and I hadn't really heard anything back. Um, and I was just trying to get on to the next step, get back in the win column, get into the UFC before all of these fighters, all of us were unemployed at the same time. I fight at, 155 pounds, which is the deepest weight class in the world. So I was, trying to get ahead of the curve, which I did. I got a release, but I guess I kind of just underestimated how hard it would be to get a fight on the regional level for the amount of money that these regional shows are offering. Honestly, when I was fighting in Bellator, some of these guys were making 100+ thousand dollars to fight me, which I'd fight anybody for that. But you get to this regional level, they're offering 1,500 and 1,500, maybe two and two if you're lucky. I mean, fuck, I wouldn't fight me for that. You know what I mean? So it's been frustrating. And I think that's a big role of why I haven't been able to fight. People know I'm a tough fight, and the risk just kind of hasn't been worth the reward. Fortunately, I'm in a situation, and then my opponent now is in a situation to where we both. It's not about the money, It's we need a quality win to propel our careers to that next step. So we'll see what happens July 26th.
Yes, and when you get to the UFC, probably it will be not such a big problem to have a fight.
Right. Yeah. At that level, you're not really in a position to say no. Everybody's good, everybody's high level. You're getting paid, it's a livelihood. It's a lot different once you're fighting for these premier organizations. So I look forward to, getting there and being as active as I can.
Okay, so once again, thank you for the time.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Thanks for the interview. I appreciate it.